Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We are going through Bhagavad Gita. We are on chapter 18. We are going to start off with 43 to 49. We're going to have David read first, and then we are going to, then I will read, and then we'll go to Yogeshwar. Please keep track of all the questions that you have, any comments that you have, and you can go with that. David, go ahead.
Well, I just want to make sure that Sajam Karma is where we want to end.
Yes.
Okay, that's 48 for me. So, okay. So the actions of Kshatriya born of his own nature are heroism, exuberance, determination, resourcefulness, without trace of cowardice in battle, generosity, and leadership. The actions of Vaisya, born of his own nature, are agriculture, cow protection, and trade. Also, the actions of Sudra, born of his own nature, consistent service to the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaisyas. Following each his own activity, a man achieves finally perfection. Now hear how the performer of action prescribed according to qualification attains perfection. From whom is the existence of all living entities, by whom all this is pervaded, through worshiping him, by one's own actions prescribed according to the qualification, a man achieves perfection. One's righteousness duty imperfectly done is better than another's duty done perfectly. By performing actions predicated according to one's own nature, sinful one does not incur sinful reactions. Actions prescribed according to one's nature must not be given up, O Arjuna, even if defective, since all endeavors are covered with defects as fire is covered by smoke.
Thank you, David. I'm going to read a little bit from, I'm going to start with 41 just to give the context, but Yogeshwar is going to start commenting from 43 onwards. But 41 sets the context for this entire piece. The works of Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaishyas, and Shudra are divided according to the qualities, gunas, born of their own inner nature. Calm, self-control, ascesis, purity, long-suffering, candor, knowledge, acceptance of spiritual truth are the work of the Brahmin, born of his swabhava. Heroism, high spirit, resolution, ability, not fleeing in the battle, lordship, the temperament of ruler and leader are the natural work of the Kshatriya. Agriculture, cattle keeping, trade, inclusive of labor, of craftsman and the artisan are the natural works of the Vaishya. All work of character of service fall within the natural function of the Shudra. A man who is intent on his own natural work attains perfection. Listen, thou, how perfection is won by him who is intent on his own natural work. He, from whom all beings originate, by whom all this universe is pervaded, by worshipping him, by his own work, a man reaches perfection. Better is one's own law of works, though in itself faulty, than an alien law, well wrought out. One does not incur sin when one acts in agreement with the law of one's own nature. The inborn work, O son of Kunti, though defective, ought not to be abandoned. All actions in the three gunas indeed are clouded by defects as fire by smoke. Yogeshwar?
Shauryam tejo dhritirdakshyam yuddhe chapyapalayanam dhanamishwara bhavascha kshatram karma swabhavajam. Krishna has talked about the karma that comes out of your own nature. It is swabhavaja. We've talked about the Brahmanas. Now Krishna is talking about the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas are mainly of two categories. One is the category of the kings and the ministers, and the other category is of the army. Even those are called the Kshatriyas. What they should have, the qualities that they should have are Shauryam, Teja, Dhritir, Dakshyam. They should be determinant on what they want to do. They should have the power, the Shurvirta, Shaurya. They should have the valor in battle. If a king or a person in the army is a person who will see people in front of them, and if they are of a higher, like if they have better weapons, if that person is of a kind who will just run back, that person is not qualified for the army. Even such a king is not qualified for battle. He's not even qualified for being a king. He is supposed to protect his subjects. That is a king. And he should also be Daksha. He should also be a person of high intelligence. He should be able to make strategies in his kingdom. He's able to know what money can go from the taxes, where it can come from, and where he's supposed to spend it in the rightful way. All those qualities entail both of them, like the king and the army. Both of them should have these qualities. They should have the strategies. They should know how the kingdom is supposed to be run. Dhanam Ishvara Bhavascha. Dhanam is now particularly for the king's side. He should be able to give dana. He should be able to give donations, charity to those who are in need. When is he able to do that? When his kingdom in entirety is running in a favorable condition. When he is able to get those taxes that he's supposed to get. When he's able to get all the resources from the money he's supposed to get. And now he can give out to those in need. Ishvara Bhavascha. They should have that quality of lordship. Now, here, Ishvara Bhava, it doesn't mean that he is supposed to make his subjects lower than him. Rather, what it means that when you're a king, you're supposed to know how to be a king. For example, just to bring it to our level, if a parent doesn't know how to be a parent, then he's not a good parent. He shouldn't act only as an adult, but should also act as a parent. Because normally, as an adult, we have our own way of thinking, we have our own way of logic. However, when you interact with the child, there is this level that you have to come to of the child, and then you interact. And then there are also some times where you have to show the child that this is the right thing to do. Because you can see the entirety. The king can see the entirety, and the parent can see the entirety. He can see the society, how the society works. He can see what his child is going to lose if his qualities remain in this way. So to take the child, to mold the child into a good human being, the parent has to have some qualities that are of a parent. He has to have this adhikar over the child. He's supposed to have this lordship over the child. He's supposed to be able to say, yes, I love you, and give him all the love he needs. And then when he goes wrong, he's supposed to be able to say that this is wrong, and sometimes as well to straighten up the qualities of the child, maybe even give a slight punishment. That should be, the parent should be able to do that. Because if those are not in place, the child is not molded into the righteous person. Krishna here, in the same way, is saying that Ishvara Bhava should be in a king. He should be able to know the person who is supposed to be punished. Like in the kingdom, they're going to be people who are of, they're stealing all around, they're killing people. So he's supposed to know which people to punish. And then he's also supposed to know which people to bow down to. In the society at that time, if we read the Mahabharata, if we read the Ramayana, the instances whereby it's a two-way, always interaction. When the king goes to the Gurukul of the sage, of the rishi, he bows down to the sage. When the sage comes to the kingdom of the king, to the palace, he bows down to the king. It's a two-way interaction. It's not like I am so great that I don't bow down to anyone. Because there is a mutual understanding, there's an interdependence. It's not just dependence, like they're not dependent on each other. They are in a way independent, and then they know that there's a kind of interdependence that exists between. So the Brahmana can bow down to the Kshatriya, and the Kshatriya bows down to the Brahmana. In the same way, the king should know when to do what his subjects say and when to have lordship over his subjects, to say that, no, you cannot see the future as I am seeing it. And if you do this right, then your future will also be right. In that faith, Krishna has said that the king should be able to give charity towards his subjects, and then should also be able to have this adhikar over his subjects. Kshatram karma swabhavajan. And there is this flavor that if it is from swabhava, it is always this sugandhit, it's always this scentful. And when it goes out of swabhava, then it gets this stain on itself. For example, when there's also so many kings who were stained, even in history of India. It's not like they all come from the swabhava. But what Krishna is saying, if it is swabhavaja, then it will have this fruitful scent out of it. And you will be able to, even the subjects will feel like, yes, this is our king. And we can bow down to him because we see the greatness in him. Krishi Gaurakshya Vanijyam Vaishyakarma Swabhavajam Paricharyatmakam Karma Shudrasyapi Swabhavajam. Krishi means farming. Gauraksha means those animals that help him with farming, or even those animals that give food for their family, to protect them now. Protecting in this root of raksha, normally it will mean protecting, like just protecting from outside hazards. That's fine. But raksha also has another meaning, which means to provide for them. When you're providing for them, you're protecting them from the hunger that they could have gotten, or protecting them from any illness that they would get. So providing for them, whether it's food, whether it's water, just basic needs for them. That is also what a Vaishya should do. Varnijyam, trade, is what a Vaishya should also do. That is a Vaishya's quality now. When these qualities start get mixed up, is when this fruitful scent gets stained, whereby now the king is now thinking in the rights of how much more money can I get from my subjects. Then it gets tainted. And if the Vaishya is now thinking about how do I get lordship, how do I get this Ishvara Bhava out of all that are working under me, then it gets stained. So when these are Swabhavaja, when it is from your own being, then you can see this fruitful scent out of it. When they go in each other, like for example, just imagine a Brahmana wanting to give, wanting to be able to tread, let's say. He won't be able to do his own karma, which is meant for, which is Brahmanatva, which is the intellectual part. And when he goes into trading, he may have some skills about trading, he may be able to make some money out of it, but it will be stained in a way. His own swabhava will become stained. He won't be able to flower in the same way. It's like saying that a rose and a lotus, both of them are beautiful in their own way. If a rose would now like to say that, oh, I feel I should not be a rose, I should be a lotus because it feels beautiful. When it starts thinking about a lotus and now starts growing like a lotus, and it is put where a lotus is grown, which is in the mud, it will never grow fully as a rose. It will not be able to. And if a lotus feels like I should not be in the mud, oh, it is stained, I should now go where a rose is supposed to be put, in like the beautiful gardens where all people can come and see me, then the lotus will not be able to be a full-fledged lotus. It will be a lotus, but it won't be able to flower as much as possible as it would have been able to flower in the mud. Paricharyatmakam karma, shudrasyapi swabhavajam. The seva karma is Shudra's swabhavik karma. It's from their own nature that it comes out to do seva of any kind. Even seva in this context, seva, whether it's of the other three varnas or even seva of the community, that quality is of the Shudras. They can do any, even the smallest type of seva, they are able to do. And why are they able to do it? One, it is their swabhava. Second, they are the best people who can do it, as in they have the best skills to perform it. Normally, would say how the society thinks about this right now. What it would say is that Brahmana has been given a higher stature because they are able to be intellectual, and Shudra has been given the lowest stature because they are able only to do the lowest kinds of work. But think about it like this. We have taken the intellectual to be so high within our society. We have forgotten the small fruits that even a nurse gets out of helping the patient. That small interaction, we've forgotten the fruit of that small interaction. When we have only taken one faculty as the highest, we have forgotten how sweet it feels when you're able to serve even the lowest kind of person. Like what seva has, the fruit that seva has, we've forgotten it. That is why Krishna here is continuing in the next verse. Swe swe karmarnyabhirata sansiddhim labhate naraha. Swakarma nirata siddhim yatha vindati tatshrinu. Here Krishna is saying, no need to change your swabhavik karma. No need to think that any other karma is higher than yours. Don't put any one karma as high in the society, and then everybody is supposed to do that. No, that's not what's supposed to happen. What is supposed to happen is let all the different types of karma be as they are, and allow people to be able, by their own swabhava, by their own nature, be able to go into those karma. And it's not that if they go into one type of karma, they'll be able to get to Brahman. And if they go into another type of karma, they won't be able to get to Brahman. No. Krishna here is saying, Swe Swe Karmanyabhirata Sansiddhim Labhate Nara. When they do their own karma, which is from their nature, they're able to get Sansiddhi. They're able to get to the path of Brahman. And Sansiddhim here is the path onto Brahman. Even the nurse, not even the doctor, but even the nurse, if we could take into the context, when the nurse is able to do it at the right time, to help the patient at the right time, may not have that much knowledge as the doctor has, but is able to give the love to the patient when the patient needs it, is able to give the determination the patient needs when the patient is sick. Now, the doctor doesn't do it. The doctor just prescribes the medicine, gives the injections, but that is not enough for the patient. The patient needs something else at that time as well. Patient needs the medicines, that's fine. But what the nurse gives at that time is specific to the patient. And the nurse will not treat each and every patient in the same way. Whereas the doctor can do that. The doctor can treat all the patients in the same way. Like if you have a certain kind of disease, he will just prescribe certain kinds of medicines to all those people. That's fine. But the nurse, what the nurse will see is totally different. Whatever kind of disease they may be having, the nurse will be able to help them with the emotional being, help them build determination to live, that they may have something to live for, even though they don't have so much money. They may be poor, but the nurse helps them to get through. Even that is really helpful for the person, the patient. Now, not only helpful to the patient, but even the nurse feels like, yes, I'm able to help. That small kind of helping is where Krishna is saying, even using that, they can get to the highest level of being. And Swakarma nirata siddhim yatha vindati tachram. Krishna is saying how that person will reach the highest level of Brahman, to the path of Brahman, using their own karma. O Arjuna, I am going to tell you, listen. Yata pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmanatam abhyarchya siddhim vindati manavah. Where all the living beings and non-living beings come from, all the manifest comes from the unmanifest. Yena sarvamidam tatam. And then, not that these two things are distinct now, because the manifest has come from the unmanifest. It's not distinct. Krishna is saying the unmanifest is staying with the manifest. Yena sarvamidam tatam. The unmanifest, which is in each and everything, even the smallest of things, it is there. Even in space, wide space, it is there. Whether a room is empty or is full of so much Brahman is there. Swakarmanatam abhyarcha. What do? You use your own karma. Using your own karma, abhyarcha tam. Now, archa dhatu. Archa means archa pujayam. That is abhyarcha. So that is abhi archa. Archa means puja. Archa pujayam in Sanskrit. You do puja of the manifest because you can see the unmanifest within. You worship your karma. You worship using your karma. And when you worship using your karma, there will be this karma yoga point that you're able to reach. Because your karma is not only karma, it is worship now. It is the highest kind of worship that you could have performed at any point in your life. Using that worship now, siddhim vindati manava. Any person can get to the path of Brahman. Shreyan swadharmo viguna paradharmat swanushthitat swabhavaniyatam karma purvannapnoti kilvisham. Shreyan swadharmo viguna paradharmat swanushthitat. If it is your own dharma, if it is coming from your swabhava. Now Krishna is putting two words here. One word that we have been able to use until this verse is karma, swakarma, that comes from your swabhava. Another word Krishna here is using is swadharma. Two of them are distinct. Now, swakarma is at the top of your body, like it's part of your body. Swadharma is inside. It is like more towards your antahkara. It's more towards your mind. Because everything in the context of Swabhava, in the context of what Krishna is saying in the Gita, everything evolves from your Swabhava. It will be your Swabhava, your own nature, that will bring forth your Swadharma, which will be in your Antakara, in your consciousness, which will bring about your Swakarma. Krishna is slowly talking about your karma, then coming inwards now, your Swadharma. What does it mean to be in your Swadharma? It will be reflected in your Swakarma, but there is something distinct about your Swadharma. Shreyan Swadharma Viguna. Even though your Swadharma is Viguna, Paradharmat Swanushtita, even though it doesn't look at the best, but if it is with your Swabhava, if it evolves from your Swabhava, then it is, even though it looks so good, like the example that I gave, the lotus being able to flower in the mud. Now that mud may look like, why should a flower feel like I should flower in the mud? What if it can get better conditions out of the mud? What if it can get better conditions in the soil, like where a rose is able to flower? If you take the lotus in the garden without the water, without that mud, it won't be able to flower as well. That's what Krishna here is saying. And there's also another nyaya that is given in Sanskrit. Parvataha durat ramaniyaha. All the mountains, if you see them from afar, they are so beautiful. And it has the context within that nyaya, within that saying in Sanskrit. It's saying that whatever you see from afar, it may look so good that you feel like doing it. But then when you get nearer to it, when you approach it, when you start doing that type of karma, you start seeing the hardships that are in there. You start seeing that even it may have the same viguna, it may have the same durguna, it may have the same bad qualities that your own karma had. Because what you're seeing the bad qualities as are just from the outside. However, there is that intrinsic nature that is staying inside. Why now? Swabhava niyatam karma, purvan napnoti kilbisham. Krishna is also saying something really important here, that yes, I'm telling you to be in your own dharma. Why? Because if your karma is done from your swabhava, swabhava niyatam karma, and if you're doing it, then any type of papa won't touch you, it won't stain you. This is something really important Krishna has said, that what is papa and what is punya? Krishna has changed the whole definition. What is papa and what is punya? Punya is something that comes out of your own swabhava. Papa is something that doesn't come out of your own swabhava. It comes out of another person's swabhava. Or you're doing it because it is made to look good in the society. That's why you're doing it. Krishna is saying that's not punya. What is punya is something that arises from your own swabhava. And he won't be stained by any papa if he does it from his swabhava. That definition of papa and punya is really important, because what the definitions that we have been given of papa and punya, of good deeds and bad deeds, is normally given to us by the society. But when Krishna is giving us this definition, it has the touch with us. Like, for example, if a person in the army is told that he's supposed to do ahimsa, that can never happen. He is supposed to fight. In his own dharma, the himsa is also his dharma. So papa doesn't touch him. It's not a bad deed. Whereas when a person who is always disturbing other people, is always harming other people, when you tell him this is this is himsa and you're supposed to do ahimsa, then you're telling him that you're doing bad. Yes. Why are you doing bad? It is because you're not rooted within your own swabhava. It's why you're doing bad. It's why you're able to harm people in your society. It's because you're not rooted into your swabhava. If you were rooted into your swabhava, if you could be taught how to manifest your own hobby, if you would have been taught how to manifest your own swabhava into a karma, into a dharma, then Krishna is saying you wouldn't be able to do this papa, you wouldn't be able to do this bad deed. Sahajam karma kaunteya sadoshamapi na tyajet sarvarambha hi doshena dhumena agnirivavrataha. Sahajam karma kaunteya sadoshamapi na tyajat. However many bad qualities you may be seeing in your own swabhava, because what comes from your swabhava is sahaja. Sahajam meaning it's really easy to do. You don't even need to think about it. That's how easy it is to do. If it is such a type of karma, then even though there are these minute bad qualities, they may be, because Krishna is going to clarify that in the next part of the verse. There may be some bad qualities, but continue doing it. Do not leave that karma that is of your own swabhava. There may be these interactions with society that may not go well when you're in your swabhava. There may be interactions with your family that may not go well when you're in your swabhava. It doesn't mean that you hide behind the veils of saying that this is my swabhava, so I will do as I like. No, that is going into tamasa, because Krishna has talked about all this before. Not going into tamasa, not going into rajasa, but going into sattvika. Normally, in modern times, what happens is when we talk about doing karma that revolves with you, that you can pay attention to even without thinking about it. What people think about is, oh, then I can just play games the whole day, like Xbox or PS4 or whatever he has, or even the phone. I can just scroll the phone all day and it doesn't even take me anything. Well, Krishna has talked about tamasa and rajasa, living them and then going into sattva. That essence also flows through this. That karma should not be like that. Whereas Krishna is talking about, take for example, a person who is so interested in music. He's so interested in music that even learning music for 12 hours a day, he doesn't feel that I have done anything. It is so sahaja for him. It is so natural for him to do music, to sing, or to play an instrument, may it be a flute or piano or even a guitar. All those types of karma are sahaja in that way that you can do them for long, extensive hours. Still, at the end of the day, you feel so relaxed. You don't feel strained, even the least. Why is Krishna saying this? That stay in your karma, even though it may have all these small, minute, bad qualities, because sarvarambha hi doshena dhumenagni. All that you're going to start, all karma, because in one context, so this is one definition of sarvarambha. In one context, sarvarambha means karma, because you need to do karma, you need to start karma. Karma in this context, they are stained with dosha, they are stained with bad quality. There is no karma that you can do and it doesn't have a bad quality within it. For example, you may be doing something for the good of the society. There may be some times whereby you're doing the same karma, but the reaction from society is different. It's like it has some stain in it. And you'll see it as well. It doesn't mean you leave the karma. It means you do the karma even better. You do the karma living out. Like the more you do the karma, the more you're able to identify the stains and remove them slowly by slowly. And that's how you get better in your karma. However, if you do one karma for like 1 year and then start doing another karma, you'll not be able to get to the depth of the karma and be able to remove those small, minute, bad qualities that may have remained within you. Because you're just jumping from one karma onto the other, onto the other. You'll never be able to get to the depth of the karma. Because the depth of the karma takes you to your dharma. And the depth of your dharma takes you to your swabhava, takes you to who you are. And all the karma from the outside, because that's why I said in the depth, it is the original fire that has always been burning. But when you're doing karma, you'll see this dhuma, you'll see this smoke that is all around, all these bad qualities that stain the karma. But if you continue doing the karma in such depth, you'll get to this unstained fire that has always been burning within yourself, slowly from the karma, swakarma, to your swadharma, onto your swabhava. Asakta buddhi sarvatra jitatma vigata sprayah Naishkarmya siddhim paramam sannyasena digacchati. If a person is continuously doing his own swakarma in relation to his swabhava, what will he be able to do? Asakta buddhi. Because you see, his karma is now sahaja. He doesn't need someone to push him onto the karma, or he doesn't need a gift at the end of the karma. He doesn't need the money out of the karma. He doesn't need the pride out of the karma. It is just so sahaja. It's so easy for him to do the karma. What will that be able to bring out of the karma? Asakta buddhi. His own intellect will not attach anywhere. It will not attach onto the pulls from the money and the pride, and it won't be able to attach from the pushes he's getting from the society. It is asakta. He can be doing his karma just without the push and the pull. Jitatma vigata spriyaha. He won't have all the desires that go around the normal types of karma. And he will be able to be jitatma. He will be able to say, all my five senses, or my mind, my intellect, all my emotions, just get into this one type of karma. And they will be able to go there. Like a person who is so interested in music, not just interested, but he knows what singing means. When he himself is singing, it's not only his mouth singing. It's not only that he is also listening to his own singing, not only that as well, but he's poured his whole heart into the singing. He's poured his whole mind into the singing. Like there's nothing out of the singing that you can see of this person. He's fully involved in the singing. In that way, there is a moment of concentration, deep concentration he can get into, where if he's taken on to the next step, he can realize what Brahman is. Because Krishna is saying he will be able to get to the asakta buddhi, vigata spriya, and jitatva, to get to that level of concentration. And what will happen is Naishkarmya Siddhim Paramam Sannyase Nadigachati. He will be able to get to the Naishkarmya Siddhi. This is what Krishna had started with verse 45. Sansiddhim Labhate Nara. He gets to the Siddhi. Which type of Siddhi? Naishkarmya Siddhi. It is really important what Krishna is trying to say. In verse 45, he says, in your own karma, you get to the siddhi. Which type of siddhi? He's saying in 49 is naishkarmya siddhi. It is that siddhi that is beyond karma. Doing karma, slowly by slowly, you get beyond karma. You get to that level which is nishkarma. You are doing karma, but it is not that you are doing karma. Now, people who are seeing you will say that you are doing karma, but from your experience, there is no karma you're doing. Karma is being done. And that is also important in Sanskrit, because there are two types of ways of saying anything. It is that aham pustakam pathami. I am reading a book. And there's another way of saying it. Maya pustakam pathyate. Where what that person is saying there is, the book is being read by me. Now, in there, the focus, like look at the focus. When you're saying, I am reading a book, the focus is in the I, because I am reading the book. Whereas in the other type of language, the book is being read by me. It's like the me is not so important. The book is being read by me. Like the reading is important. That karma is so important. Then Krishna is also talking about the next level, like the whereby it becomes nishkam karma, it becomes neshkarma, whereby just reading happens, and then even the me part, whereby the me part is still there in this sentence, but even the me part dissolves, and only reading, whereby only the karma is present at that time, and you are nowhere in the karma. The karma is just happening. That happening of the karma, Krishna is saying, Neshkarmya siddhim paramam sannyasena digacchati. And how does he get there? Sannyasa. Remember what Krishna had talked about sannyasa at the start. The definitions of tyaga and sannyasa. What sannyasa truly means is not the sannyasa that we have in mind, but kamyanam karmanam nyasa, sannyasam kavayo vidu. And then sarva karma phala tyaga, prahus tyagam vichakshana. You leave all those types of karma that are just calling you from the surface. They don't really touch you in your heart, but they just call you from the surface. You leave them. That is sannyasa. And then even the karma you are doing, you leave all the desires aside. You leave all the pulls and pushes aside. Leave all the attachments aside. And he will get to that stage of Neshkarmya Siddhim. Using this sannyasa, this karma that Krishna has said, Krishna is saying, this is the sannyasa I'm talking about in these 5 or 6 verses that I've taught. This is the real sannyasa I'm talking about.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. Folks, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to read Sri Aurobindo's commentary on these verses, and then we're going to open it up for any questions and comments. So Sri Aurobindo says, the Gita's philosophy of life and works is that all proceeds from the divine existence, the transcendent and universal spirit. All is veiled manifestations of the Godhead, and to unveil the immortal within and in the world, to dwell in unity with the soul of the universe, to rise in consciousness, knowledge, will, love, spiritual delight, to oneness with the Supreme Godhead, to live in the highest spiritual nature with the individual and the natural being, delivered from shortcoming and ignorance and made a conscious instrument for the works of the divine Shakti, is the perfection of which humanity is capable and the condition of immortality and freedom. But how is this possible when in fact we are enveloped in natural ignorance, the soul shut up in the prison of ego, overcome, beset, hammered, and molded by the environment, mastered by the mechanisms of nature, cut off from our hold on the reality of our own secret spiritual force? The answer is that all this natural action, however now enveloped in a veiled and contrary working, still contains the principle of its own evolving freedom and perfection. A Godhead is seated in the heart of every man and is the Lord of this mysterious action of nature. And though the spirit of the universe, this one who is all, seems to be turning us on the wheel of the world, as if mounted on a machine by the force of Maya, shaping us in our ignorance as the potter shapes a pot, a weaver of fabric, by the skillful mechanical principle, yet is this spirit our own greatest self. And it is according to the real idea, the truth of ourselves, that which is growing in us and finding always new and more adequate forms in birth after birth, in our animal and human and divine life, in that which we wear, that which we are, that which we shall be. It is in accordance with this inner soul truth that, as our open eyes will discover, we are progressively shaped by the spirit within us in its all-wise omnipotence. This machinery of ego, this tangled complexity of the three gunas, mind, body, life, emotion, desire, struggle, thought, aspiration, endeavor, this locked interaction of pain and pleasure, sin and virtue, striving and success and failure, soul and environment, myself and others, is only the outward imperfect form taken by a higher spiritual force in me, which pursues through its vicissitudes the progressive self-expression of the divine reality and greatness I am secretly in spirit and shall overtly become in nature. This action contains in itself the principle of its own success, the principle of swabhava and swadharma. He continues, the jiva, the life, is the self-expression, is in self-expression a portion of the Purushottam or God. He represents in nature the power of the Supreme Spirit. He is in his personality that power. He brings out in an individual existence the potentialities of the soul of the universe. This jiva itself is the spirit and is not the natural ego. The spirit and not the form of ego is our reality and inner soul principle. The true force of what we are and can be is there in that higher spiritual power. And the mechanical maya of the three gunas is not the inmost and the fundamental truth of its movement. It is only a present executive energy, an apparatus of lower convenience, a scheme of outward exercise and practice. The spiritual nature which has become this multiple personality in the universe is the basic stuff of our existence. All the rest is lower derivation and outer formation from the highest hidden activity of the spirit. And in nature, each of us has a principle and will of our own becoming. Each soul is a force of self-consciousness that formulates an idea of the divine in it and guides by that its action and evolution, its progressive self-finding, its constant varying self-expression, its apparent uncertain but secretly inevitable growth to fullness. That is our swabhava, our own real nature. That is our truth of being, which is finding now only a constant partial expression in our various becoming in the world. The law of action determined by this swabhava is our right law of self-shaping, function, working, our swadharma. So I really like these formulations of Sri Aurobindo. So folks, now I want to open it up for any comments or questions. the core ideas here are that of swabhava and swadharma, and how you should act in accordance with them. We'll start with Joe. Joe, go ahead.
So I think about this in terms of our actions with swabhava.
Swabhava.
I was reading number 47. It says, better is one's own law works through in itself faculty than an alien law. Well,
Joe, can you do one thing? Can you bring your mic closer to your mouth?
sorry. Yeah, sorry. Better is one own's law of works through in itself faulty than an alien law well wrought out. One does not incur a sin when one acts in agreement with the law of one's own nature. And I'm thinking about this in the sense that about our imperfections and how that fits into this particular verse. And I was thinking about essentially nothing that we're going to do and how we act in the world is really going to be perfect. So we have to be detached from the outcomes from that in the sense that of any of the actions that we take. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, I think this verse is about something else.
Okay.
It is about saying that identify your own deep nature. And that is what swabhava is. Swa means your own,
Okay.
and bhava is nature. So identify your own nature and act in accordance with that. And what it is saying is that in so doing, whatever you make, you're going to make mistakes. What is important is to act in accordance with your own nature. Even if that means making mistakes, those will naturally fix it themselves over time. If you try to act in accordance to a nature which is not your own, no matter how smooth the performance is in the short run, in the long run, you are not going to be an authentic human being. You will not be acting from your center. So it is better to act from your center, from your own nature, and fix faults as they develop. That is a path to true self-growth, as opposed to trying to act in according to a nature which is not your own. That's what I would say. What do you think, Yogeshwar? Go ahead, Joe, you had
Yeah, no, I mean, that part actually does make sense to me in the sense that it's also how we can best contribute to a society as well. I mean, as well as acting in our own nature, doing what our role is supposed to be done. It's actually contributing to the greater whole in addition to that. That part I understood. I just thought about the imperfection part about it. That part, I was kind of thinking about how we need to be detached from whatever actions like that, that we're taking, or the outcomes of our actions, no matter what, in addition to that. And that's where this whole idea of kind of the one does not incur sin when one acts in agreement with the law of one's nature. So that's what I was thinking, so that you don't have a sin because you haven't really messed up, because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Sure. Let's have Yogeshwar comment. Yogeshwar, go ahead.
Yes, so there's also this other thing about this verse, that normally when we make some mistakes, we always want to run away. Like, we want to say that, oh, I have not done this mistake, somebody else told me to do this mistake. Like, that's when this mistake happened. When Krishna is saying that when you're on your own swabhava, anything you do, it won't result into a sin, it won't result into a bad deed per se. Krishna is saying that any mistakes you make on the way, they are accepted by me. I accept them. You don't need to say, I didn't do it, or somebody else told me to do it, because this is coming from your Swabhava. And you can't put it on somebody else because it's your Swabhava that you are abiding by. And when you're doing this from your Swabhava, another thing that you're putting out of the way in the long term, like if you think for the short term, something may be smooth, as Shrikant said. But when you think in the long term, if it's from your Swabhava, then you can, in the long term, you can do it without any attachments. You can do it without any desires. For it, like for that karma to be done, you don't need anything to pull you towards it. You don't need the money, or you don't need the pride, or you don't need the fame for you to do that karma. You can do it because it comes from inside. So if you look in a broad perspective, you see that even the small shortcomings that you had, in the long run, they were not shortcomings. They were just normal mistakes that any human being would make on the way.
Thank you. Folks, if you have comments or questions, go ahead and ask. I'm going to give a minute or so for people to ask questions if anybody has any more questions or comments. Marco, go ahead.
How would you know if you're acting in accordance or against your own nature?
Wonderful, excellent question. Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yes, so it is, I will say, just like knowing your talent, like knowing your hobby. For example, when you're back from work and you start, maybe if your hobby is like painting, you start putting the paint on the canvas. When you start doing that, it actually relaxes you rather than straining you. Like normal work or normal karma, by our standards, would strain you, whereby your hobby or your talent will start relaxing you. You will be relaxed while you're doing it, and even after doing it, there will be this scent that is behind within you, and you'll just feel relaxed even after doing it. Such a type of karma would say that you don't need anything to pull you as well. Like you're painting in your home. It's not like you're going to say that, oh, I'm painting for the money, or I'm painting to put them in the showcase, that I will put them in an exhibition. No, you're just painting for your own self, like something that you can do first without any desires and attachments, without any push and pull. And the second, that relaxes you. It puts you in a state whereby you feel like, I don't need to do anything to do this karma. It's just automatic that I'm doing it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. So that's a fantastic question. I mean, this is along the lines of the dictum, know thyself, know yourself. It is most of us, most people are reactive to things around them, and they do things because of things around them or what is expected of them. So they're reactive to things. The core idea here is to go towards the core of your being and try to get to know that and try to act from that. That is what, that's how, that's what makes it so. And it's not easy. It is lifelong practice. You have to do this on a continual basis. You have to listen to yourself, and you will get feedback. Most people actually ignore it because they consider it to be less important than things which are in the periphery. This is, again, you can think of it in terms of center and periphery. What this is saying is that act from the center, not from the periphery. So other people would be saying, okay, do people like me? What does this person say about me? You know, how, so it's mostly kind of reaction to periphery. This is saying, go to your center and act from that. That's what it is. Next up is Joe.
Actually, that's okay. It's I'm
Okay.
fine.
All right, let's see. So where are we here? We are at about 50 or so. Yogeshwar, how would you like to proceed? Do you want to do some more verses? Do you want, or I could raise some general questions about Gita? What would you prefer? Would you like to start off next set of verses, or would you prefer to do it another time? We can do.
We have some time, so let's say
Sure.
50 to 54. That
Okay.
will be fine.
50 to 54. Perfect.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Let's see here. David is here? No, David. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read 50 onwards. Okay. How, having, give me just a second. I'm going to just do this. Okay, so 50 to 54. How, having attained this perfection, one thus attains to the Brahman. Let me go ahead and start for 49. You know, Yogesh will start talking from 50, but I just want to go one verse before to give a context. An understanding without attachment in all things, a soul self-conquered and empty of desire, man attains by renunciation a supreme perfection of nishkarma. How, having attained this perfection, one thus attains to the Brahman. Hear from me, O son of Kunti, that which is the supreme concentrated direction of knowledge, uniting the purified intelligence with the pure spiritual substance in us, controlling the whole being by firm and steady will, having renounced sound and the other objects of senses, withdrawing from all liking and disliking, resorting to impersonal solitude, abstemious speech, body and mind controlled, constantly united with the inmost self by meditation, completely giving up desire and attachments, having put away egoism, violence, arrogance, desire, wrath, the sense and instinct of possession, free from all I-ness and my-ness, calm and luminously impassive, one is fit to become the Brahman. When one has become the Brahman, when one serene in the self, neither grieves nor desires, when one is equal to all beings, then one gets the supreme love and devotion to me. I'm going to read one more just to make sure that this, by devotion, he comes to know me, who and how much I am, and in all the reality and principles of my being. Having thus known me, he enters into that which is Purushottam, or God. Yogeshwar.
Siddhim prapto yatha brahma tathapnoti nibodha me samase naiva konteya nishtha jnanasya ya para. Having gotten this siddhi, Which siddhi? Naishkarmya siddhi. How he gets to Brahma now? Because Naishkarmya siddhi is the path. And how he gets to Brahma now, I am going to tell you. So listen, O Arjuna. I am going to tell you Nishtha Jnanasya Yapara. I am going to tell you that which is within Jnana. It is there within Jnana. But then normally when Jnana is looked at, it's only looked at from the outside. They never get to the middle of Jnana. Nishtha means something that never changes. It is there and it will stay there forever. Normally, the type of knowledge we know is this knowledge that something was relevant 200 years ago, and that is not relevant now. That type of knowledge is not relevant now. And if something is not relevant now, what is relevant now in that same at that same level won't be relevant in the next 200 years. That is the changing type of knowledge that we know, that is given to us from our society, from our environment. What Krishna is saying here is Nishtha Jnanasya Ya Para. That which is within Jnana, it is the knowledge, but it is the Para Nishtha. It is that which stays eternally. It is that which holds everything into place. It is that type of knowledge. Having attained it, there is no way of departing from it. Having attained that knowledge, there is no need to move from the seat of knowledge. You'll always be seated there. And when Krishna says that this is Nishtha Jnanasya Yapara, Krishna is saying, having attained this type of knowledge, there is no any other knowledge that you need to know. That is the eternal knowledge. Buddhya vishuddhaya yukto dhrityatmanam niyamya cha shabdadin vishayan tyaktva raga dvesho vyudasya cha. This, at the level at which we are, is something that we have to do. However, think about the level that Krishna has taken Arjuna to. Not just a normal level of doing karma, not even doing your own karma, but then whilst doing your own karma, Krishna has taken that person to a level of Naishkarmya, where he's gotten the siddhi of Naishkarmya. Having gotten to that level of Naishkarmya siddhi, Krishna is saying, you have gotten the utmost pure intellect. And you have got the patience that is needed to get onto Brahma. You have got the determination that is needed to get onto Brahman. And Atmanam Niyamya. What does Atmanam Niyamya mean? Means that when you've gotten to that Naishkarmya Siddhi, you're able to do that karma even as if it's not karma. It's like the karma part of it has just dissolved. You don't know where. But you're doing that karma and it feels like there is no karma within. There's no tangible karma within. It's something that you can just dwell through and nothing disturbs you within. When you're within that state of being, Krishna is saying, Atmanam Niyamya. What Krishna is meaning is not that effort that we have to put in to make our senses into one. However, that effortless effort that the Naishkarmya has, that person has to put into putting all his senses into one direction, which is into the Naishkarmya. It is that effortless effort. Shabdadin vishayans tyaktva raga dvesho vidyasya cha. He will not have to dwell within all the sense objects of the five senses, which include speech and rupa and the gandha and all that, smell, touch, all that. He will not even have to live it in a way. He will have this, because as we have seen, his karma itself is neshkarma. So even his living is like not living. It's like effortless living because he's doing this neshkarma. Raga dvesho vidasya. He also just has to just put aside this raga and dvesha. In a way, it's already aside, but even the stains that are remaining. Now, what Krishna is talking about is not this peripheral raga dvesha that we have with other people. Sometimes we also have raga dvesha with our body, with our intellect. We tend to favor some types of thoughts and not tend to favor other types of thoughts. We also have that small type of raga dvesha. We tend to like some kinds of emotions and not like other types of emotions. We tend to like love and tend not to like fear, or tend not to like other types of emotions. What Krishna here is saying is a state of being whereby you can have love, you can have fear, and you don't feel like running away. You're just there. It doesn't mean that you've just done it using an understanding just at the top. But this type of understanding that you've gotten is deep within your heart. You can say it's not even within your heart, but it's like it's coming from your own being. And when something comes from your own being, whether something is fearful from the outside, like the peripheral, something that is fearful from the outside, you receive the emotion which is fear. That's fine. At this stage, yes, you still receive that emotion, Krishna is saying. But you don't run away from the emotion. When Krishna is talking about raga dvesha here, because we know Krishna has taken us on a journey. So we know where Krishna is standing when he's saying that leave all the raga and dvesha, leave all the desire and what you're running away from. Leave all that. Don't run towards something or don't run away from something. Just be. And that's when you know your swabhava, when you are. If you are not, you're always running away or towards something, you never know who you truly are. Because swabhava, in a way, swabhava is also made of the dhatu bhu. Bhu means bhu sattayam, and sattayam means to be. And swabhava means to be. It doesn't mean running away, because when you're running away, you have to concentrate on things that are around you, or what you're running away from. That's what you're concentrated upon. And when you're running towards something, you concentrate upon what you're running towards, rather than concentrating on what is, which is your swabhava. And because all these sense objects have been put away, and even something that is within you, which are your emotions, which are your thoughts, they are not disturbing you from the state of being. You can be there for as long as you wish. It is a state of bliss. Krishna is saying, Vivikta sevi lagvashi yatabaka yamanasah dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashritah. When you're in such a state, however much karma you're doing at that state, you are still Vivikta sevi. You may be in the middle of a crowd, but you're not touched by the crowd. And all your senses are, in a way, they are working within you. They're not working outside you. They're working within the roads of your Swabhava, where your Swabhava is leading them. And when your Swabhava says that this is not what I am, your senses just come back towards you automatically. When that happens, you do not need to say a lot. Yatavak. You don't need to do a lot. Yatakaya. And you also don't need to think a lot. Yatamanasa. All the three types of equipment that you have at your disposal, which is your body, your speech, and your mind. You do not need to use them a lot. That is one thing. And whenever you use them, they are always within your control. They never run out of your control. Normally, we feel that the body is within our control. But we also need to think about it, because sometimes when we are talking, our hands are maybe on the table. They're fidgeting with something. And even more about it, that sometimes our speech is also out of our control. Somebody asks you, what did you say? And I don't know. Or why did you say something like this? And then you say, my speech just got out of control. For such a person, his speech is in his control and his mind. Now just think about a situation whereby your hand is always running around without your control. What we'd normally say is that he has a certain kind of illness. It may be mental, it may be physical, but there's a kind of illness that he has that his hand cannot be in his control. It's just moving around. The same situation is with our mind. It moves around and we don't have any control over it. However, one thing that is okay with us, why we're okay with that, is that everybody around us is in the same situation. But when we get to those type of people that have their mind still always, they are in this nishkarma, and they can keep their mind still for long times. When you get around such people, you realize that this is also some kind of illness that I'm having with my mind. And until I cannot get rid of that illness, not directly, but even indirectly, like doing some kind of naishkarmya, doing some kind of karma that comes out of my swabhava, and then getting to my siddhi, and then knowing where my mind is. Normally what happens is when somebody tells us, oh, you're supposed to do dhyana or you're supposed to meditate, we just sit and start meditating. Krishna is taking you through the right way. Go on to doing karma, your swabhavik karma. That will take you on to naishkarmya. What Krishna is doing is not running away from anything that life has to give you. Krishna is going head on with it. You do karma in the best way, that it leads you to naishkarmya. You do naishkarmya, siddhi, in the best way, that it leads you towards the best attention you can have. At that time, you don't need to meditate. Meditation happens. Even while you're doing the work, even while the musician is playing that specific tune in the music, he is in a state of meditation. Even while Krishna is playing the tune of the flute, he is in the state of meditation. If you can see that, if you can see the naishkarmya within it, if you can see the meditation within it, then Krishna is saying, Dhyana yoga paro nityam, vairagyam samupashrita. That person is dhyana yoga para. He is always doing dhyana yoga, is always in the state of meditation. From the outside, it may feel that he is dancing, he is laughing, he is playing music, he is singing, or he's painting, or even he's doing this type of reading that may need a lot of concentration. Then Krishna is saying he is in his meditative state. And one way of looking at this is he is in his meditative state. Paraha means he is at his utmost meditative state. And that doesn't happen to him one time and then breaks and another time. But Krishna is saying Nityam. Nityam, he is Dhyana Yoga Para. He doesn't need to do dhyana. Dhyana comes to him. Vairagyam samupashrita. He is always also in the state of vairagya. He doesn't have to go towards vairagya. Vairagya means raga. Raga meaning desire, or even raga is also gotten by paint, like color. Color means raga. So you are not stained by any paint. You are just who you are because you are in your swabhava. You're not stained by anything else from the outside because you're in your swabhava. Vairagya also means nothing from the outside will attach to you. There's no attachment formed. And there's also no desire towards something else. That is Vairagya. When we look at Vairagya, a person is directly trying to go into Vairagya, you can see that he's always missing the point. He will never get to Vairagya. However, the path that Krishna is laying out is the best way to get to Vairagya, is the best way to get to Dhyana, is the best way to get to meditation. Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimuchya nirmama shanto brahma bhuyaya kalpate. When, I'll first leave ahankara for the end. So when he has the utmost bala, meaning shakti, the utmost power within himself, when he has the utmost, because people will see him as a person who is righteous, rightful, and he's doing his own karma. So there will be this darpa that comes within you. There will also be this fame that comes. Maybe it comes, maybe it doesn't come. And then, even though that comes, Krishna is saying, Vimuchya, you can leave it. In a way, you don't need to leave it, it just slides off you, even though it comes. Then these other types, which are kamam, krodham, parigraham, those have already been done with. Because when you're in the state of Vairagya, there is no kama, there is no krodha, there is no parigraha, there is no desire, there is no anger towards anything. Because when are you angry towards something or somebody? Is you are desiring something and something came in the middle or somebody came in the middle. So you will get angry at that person. Or you're saying that I want to run away from this particular thing and somebody brings it near you, you become angry. Krishna is saying there's nothing you want or there's nothing you're running away from. So you won't get angry. It's automatic. And you will also be aparigraha. Parigraha vimuchya. You'll not need to have all these things at the peripheral. Because normally when we're interacting with people, we need to have all these things gotten. You need all the qualities like modesty, honesty, righteousness. You need to hold on to them. What Krishna is saying, even though you don't hold on to them, even parigraha vimuchya, you will be able to interact with people normally. It will even be more natural than having to hold on to these good qualities that you will need to hold on to if you don't have vairagya within you, if you don't have meditation within you. Vimuchya, all those, yeah, leaving all those, and then ahankaram, and then you're also saying after leaving ahankara, because ahankara is something that if you start leaving it, you will never be able to leave it. There will be a stain that is always left behind. Because who is going to leave the ahankara? It will still be you. So that I is still remaining behind. When you've left the ahankara, what is left in Yoga Shastra is called asmita. Because what ahankara is that which ties you with the peripheral, is that which ties you to the outside, is that which ties you to the body. However, when you've left all that, there is still the asmita that is going to remain within yourself. That asmita, Krishna is saying, also leave it. Nirmama. When you become nirmama, when you also leave that asmita that is within you, then Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpata. You are at a stage whereby you're able to get onto Brahma now. So we have talked about 3 stages so far. One is doing your karma, your swabhavik karma. Another is getting to the stage of neshkarmya, using your swabhavik karma. Then the third stage is after getting to neshkarmya, you are getting beyond neshkarmya now. You're getting onto nirmama. You're purifying yourself to get to the stage whereby Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. The last point in that stage is nirmama, which Krishna is saying, leaving your asmita. The example that normally is given in that is, we gave this example in chapter 13. You have a glass in front of you. You can see yourself in there. Now, Krishna is saying, you're able to distinguish that which is beyond the glass, which is the peripheral, that which is on the other side of the glass, it's the peripheral, and the reflection that you can see on the glass, which is of yourself. It is the Atman that you've realized that is distinguished from what is on the other side of the glass. So you can see that there is something on this side of the glass that I should be seeing. However, Krishna is saying, even that reflection that is there, even though it is of yourself, it is not you. You have not yet reached to your Swabhava. What Yoga Shastra calls as asmita is that reflection that is on the glass. You may have realized that there's something on this side, there's something on the inside, but just realization is not enough. Getting to it, living even that realization that it is there, living the reflection and getting onto yourself is what living asmita means. And when that happens, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Now, this is sweet. Like this quarter of a verse is sweet. Why is it sweet? Is because Krishna is saying that now he doesn't have to do anything to get to Brahman. And not because he has done so much and now he's able not to do anything. However, Brahman can never be gotten by doing something. It is only by making yourself a patra. It's only by making yourself a valley that you can allow Brahman to rain onto you. Because Brahman is always raining. It's like right now we are a mountain. We're filled with our ahankara. We're filled with our krodha. We're filled with our desires. So we are this big mountain. The rain is showering, but it's always just flowing off the mountain. We cannot retain it. Krishna is saying, when we become that valley, automatically we're able to retain Brahman. It's not that we have to get Brahman, but we're able to retain Brahman when we're in this step. So Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. You're able to get to that state that Brahman just showers onto you. Kalpate means that you don't have to do anything, you're deserving of Brahman. What Krishna here is saying is that when we think about Brahman as something that we have to get onto, whatever we get onto will always be smaller than us because we have done it using our karma. However, Brahma is so vast that what we can only do is be deserving of the Brahman. That is all we can do. When we are deserving of the Brahman, then the Brahman is always showering. It will just shower onto you and you'll be able to retain it. It is like a pot, like this example is normally given in Indian folk tales, that there was a time when the mother told the child to put the pot when it was raining in the fields. So what the child did is to put the pot upside down. Then after having rained, what the mother told the child is, go get the pot. I need the water to cook the food. So the child brought the pot as he had put it upside down. And why did you pour the water? Then he said, there was no water in the first place. I didn't pour it. So what happens is our pots are like that. The rain is raining, but our pots are upside down. Krishna is saying that allow your pot to be upright so that it can feel the water within. And then also, what you need to do is put the pot upright and make sure that there are no holes in the pot so that it can retain the water. Also, another thing you need to do is not pour the water as it comes in. Just allow the water to flow through. When that happens, then when the mother tells the child to go get the pot, the child can go get the pot and the mother can use it for cooking. This is what Krishna is saying, that Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Now, I have some time, like I may go up to 25, so I'll just continue.
Please take your time.
Yeah, sure. So Krishna is continuing now. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nashochati Nakangshati Samha Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. It is not something that you have attained with your karma. However, it is the grace that has showered upon you. Once you are deserving, the grace automatically showers upon you. When that has happened, Brahma Bhuta, this is in the past tense now. Brahma Bhuta, Prasannatma. What will happen after Brahma has showered onto you? You will become Prasannatma. You will become blissful, utmost. And there's nothing that can take that bliss away from you. This is even beyond the happiness and the sorrow that was happening to you at the peripheral. the happiness was happening because of the peripheral, and even the sorrow was just at the peripheral. This is a distinct kind of bliss that is just showered upon you. Na shochati na kangshat. Even at the deepest level, there is no akanksha. There is no desire for anything. Not even at the peripheral, not even in the mind. Like, normally we may say that you may have some desires in the mind, but not show them outwardly. However, this person, even the desire does not rise. Even running away does not rise. He is not also sorrowful for anything that happens in his thoughts. It is just all his emotions are at par. When this happens, sama sarveshu bhuteshu, he is able to see Brahman within himself, and at the same time, not even the next second, but in the same second, at the same time, he is able to see the Brahman within everybody else. He is able to see the Brahman within the vast universe. He is able to see the Brahman within everything. And it is like all the boundaries that were set, whether it's by the society or even by his own intellect, that this is right and this is wrong, this is far and this is near, everything, all the boundaries just collapse and all becomes Brahman. When that happens, sama sarveshu bhuteshu, mad bhaktim labhate param. He receives my utmost bhakti. This bhakti is not the devotion or the worship we do normally, but it is that devotion and the worship that comes with the grace. It comes with the grace of the ultimate. When you're even doing any karma, when you even talk, you're worshipping Brahman. You're devoted towards Brahman. When you even do any karma, like standing up, you are devoted towards Brahman. Even your standing up is with utmost smoothness. It's with utmost grace that you're allowing Brahmas to stand up. That when you're doing any karma, you can see the Brahman within yourself, that Brahman is doing this karma. Brahman is cooking. Brahman is the one who is going to get this food on his plate. Brahman is the one who is going to eat this food. Brahman is the one who is going to digest this food. The whole process is Brahmamaya. There is no way that process goes wrong in any point, at any time. At that point in time, you do all your work with utmost diligence. All the karma flows through you automatically onto Brahman, because Brahman is worshipping Brahman. And even the Brahman outside is worshipping the Brahman inside. It is like there's no in and out now. Everything is one. Everything is just flowing through. A river without any bounds. A river that just flows through its course. And that river, which flows through its course, normally, if something is put onto it at one point of the river, you know it will get into the seas, into the oceans at one point in time. That flowing from the karma to the neshkarmya to the getting yourself prepared for Brahman to shower onto you, and then Brahman showering onto you. Then having that happened, you get into this deep sea of bhakti. And that sea is so vast that everything you see is Brahman now. Whereas there's one perspective. Right now, we see samsara, we see the material world. There's also another perspective of a person. Experience is bhaktimaya, is when he sees Brahman within everything. It's not that he even sees Brahman within everything. He only sees Brahman everywhere, outside or inside, even within his hands or within his legs, or even within his eyes. He sees Brahman. Even what he sees through his eyes is Brahman. When a person reaches such a state, he is said that he has received the bhakti of Krishna. He has received the bhakti of the unmanifest. He has devoted his life to the unmanifest. Each and every action that he does is a worship towards the unmanifest. You don't need to go and worship separately. You don't need to part a separate portion of time for worship or for devotion. Each and every karma that you do is devotion. Each and every karma that you do is worship towards the ultimate.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. This is just so beautiful, so amazing. I mean, I can't describe it, because it is really, you know, we are now getting to the culmination of Gita. I know Yogeshwar needs to leave. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the commentary by Aurobindo on this. So now there are essentially, what remains now is two parts. What Aurobindo calls towards the supreme secret and the supreme secret. So this section of verses Aurobindo calls towards the supreme secret. Okay, so I'm going to read his commentary on this section. Then I'm going to read through those verses that we read. I'm going to reread those verses, and then I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments. Okay, just try to experience what is being said here, because this is really everything. This is where the entire Gita is going. Everything that has been said is now being brought together. So let me go ahead and just read through this. And, you know, keep notes. Yogeshwar is not here, but we're going to continue this. You know, this is now we are coming to the culmination of Gita. So try to, you know, try to keep track of questions. You can ask questions. I don't know whether I will be able to answer them, but put your questions on the table, and then we will build on them. But this bears repeating. Towards the supreme secret. The teacher has completed all else that he needed to say. He has worked out all the central principles and supporting suggestions and implications of his message, and elucidated the principal doubts and questions that might arise around it. And now all that rests for him to do is to put into decisive phrase and penetrating formula the one last word, the heart itself of the message, the very core of his gospel. And we find that this decisive, last, and crowning word is not merely the essence of what has been already said on the matter, not merely a concentrated description of the needed self-discipline, the sadhana, and of that greater spiritual consciousness, which is to be the result of all its efforts and asceticism. It sweeps out, as it were, yet farther, breaks down every limit and rule, canon and formula, and opens into a wide and illimitable spiritual truth with an infinite potentiality of significance. And that is a sign of the profundity, the wide reach, the greatness of spirit of the Gita's teaching. First, the Gita restates the body of its message. It summarizes the whole outline and essence in the short space of 15 verses, lines of a brief and concentrated expression and significance that miss nothing of the kernel of the matter, couched in phrases of the most lucid precision and clearness. And they therefore must be scanned with care, must be read deeply in the light of all that has gone before. Because here it is evidently intended to extract what the Gita itself considers to be the central sense of its own teaching. The statement sets out from the original starting point of the thought in this book, the enigma of human action, the apparently insuperable difficulty of living in the highest self and spirit, while yet we continue to do the works of the world. The easiest way is to give up the problem as insoluble, life and action as an illusion or an inferior movement of existence to be abandoned as soon as we can rise out of the snare of the world into the truth of spiritual being. That is the ascetic solution, if it can be called a solution. At any rate, it is a decisive and effective way out of the enigma, a way to which ancient Indian thought of the highest and the most meditative kind, as soon as it has commenced to turn at a sharp incline from its first large and free synthesis, had moved, always with an increasing preponderance. The Gita, like the Tantra, and on certain sides, the later religions, attempts to preserve the ancient balance. It maintains the substance and foundation of the original synthesis, but the form has been changed and renovated in the light of a developing spiritual experience. This teaching does not evade the difficult problem of reconciling the full active life of man with the inner life in the highest self and spirit. It advances what it holds to be the real solution It does not deny the efficacy of the ascetic renunciation of life for its own purpose, but it sees that that cuts instead of loosening the knot of the riddle. And therefore, it accounts it as an inferior method and holds its own to be the better way. The two paths both lead us out of the lower, ignorant, normal nature of man to the pure spiritual consciousness. And so for both must be held to be valid and even one in essence. But where one stops short and turns back, the other advances with a firm subtlety and high courage, opens a gate on unexplored vistas, completes man in God, and unites and reconciles in the spirit, soul, and nature. And therefore, in the first 5 of these verses, the Gita so phrases its statement that it shall be applicable to both the way of the inner and the way of the outer renunciation. And yet, in such a manner that one has only to assign to some of their common expressions a deeper and a more inward meaning in order to get the sense and thought of the method favored by Gita. So I'm going to read the same verses that I read starting with 49. So please pay attention. And understanding without attachment in all things, a soul self-conquered and empty of desire, man attains by renunciation a supreme perfection in nishkarma. How, having attained this perfection, one thus attains to the Brahman? Hear from me, O son of Kunti, that which is the supreme concentrated direction of the knowledge, uniting the purified intelligence with the pure spiritual substance in us, controlling the whole being by firm and steady will, having renounced sound and the outer objects of the senses, withdrawing from all likings and dislikings, resorting to impersonal solitude, abstemious speech, body and mind controlled, constantly united with the inmost self by meditation, completely giving up desire and attachment, having put away egoism, violence, arrogance, desire, wrath, the sense and instinct of possession, free from all I-ness and my-ness, calm and luminously impassive, one is fit to become the Brahma. When one has become the Brahma, when one serene in the self, neither grieves nor desires, when one is equal to all beings, then one gets supreme love and devotion to me. By devotion, he comes to know me, who and how much I am. And in all the reality and principles of my being, having thus known me, he enters into that, the Om, the Brahma. And by doing also all actions always lodged in me, he attains by my grace the eternal and imperishable status. I want to read his commentary on this one concept of meditation, which emphasizes this point about bringing together the inner and the outer. That is, achieving the inner, connection with the deepest of your center while fully engaging in action in the world, both together. So this is his description of meditation: a continual resort to meditation, dhyana yoga paronithyam, is the firm means by which the soul of man can realize itself of power and itself of silence. And yet, there must be no abandonment of the active life. For a life of pure meditation, action must always be done as a sacrifice to the Supreme Spirit. This movement of recoil in the path of sannyas prepares an absorbed disappearance of the individual in the eternal, and the renunciation of action and life in the world is an indispensable step in the process. But in the Gita's path of Tyaga, it is a preparation rather for the turning of our whole life and existence and of all action into an integral oneness with the serene and immeasurable being, consciousness, and the will of the divine. And it preludes and makes possible a vast and total passing upward of the soul out of the lower ego to the inexpressible perfection of the supreme spiritual nature. So that is Sri Aurobindo on this penultimate section in Gita. So any thoughts, any comments? Right. Folks, if you have any comments or questions, go ahead and type an exclamation mark, because this is really, we are coming to the culmination. This is what Gita is all about. We'll start with Joe. Joe, go ahead.
There's like kind of too much to cover. I mean, and how much that has been covered. So some of the notes that I'd taken is this, the idea of renunciation is just, it's the idea, it's the act of letting go of all your desires. I mean, that much is clear to me. But
can I add something? I mean, the best, the structure of Gita is very beautiful. In the chapter 2, there is a concept of sthita prajna.
Yeah.
This is returned to the same concept.
Right.
So sthita prajna means that a steady intelligence. So you have the focus on your center and you're acting. So you are in the midst of action and you're focused on the center at the same time. So in this concept, meditation is not something that you do as a separate thing. It's that this is living but while being focused on the center. So it brings together the spirit and matter. It brings together the form and the function. You're always acting in the world, and you're acting without losing the focus for even a second on the core of your being. Good.
Yeah, actually, in the commentary, that's something that I picked up on as well. It said when you talked about the Gita and like the Tantra, on certain sides, later religions attempts to persevere ancient balance, and it talks about the inner life and the highest self, and that part really kind of resonated. That made a lot of sense to me as far as what Sri Aurobindo was actually communicating in that. And it is a culmination of what we've discussed here on a number of different options. I've also just see this other area, like I'm just for at least, going back to 52 or 53 and what we've been talking about, is that the difficulties if we leave our desires unchecked and what they lead to, and how we pursue things that are in the periphery as opposed to what are our core. And this goes back to what we just talked about being your true self, and how that our desires left unchecked actually can take us away from our true self. So that's a very, that's something that I think that as well. But Sri Aurobindo's connection was very good.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I did not read most of the notes. So I highly recommend all of that, because he actually does such a fantastic job of explaining what Gita is doing, how it is doing it, how it is, and he distinguishes it carefully from this sannyas, which is kind of giving up of the external and saying, okay, in order to get to the center, you have to give up the periphery. Whereas Gita is saying, no, he's saying it's integrated, it's kind of integration of spirit and matter. Wonderful. If anybody else wants to comment, you're welcome to type an exclamation mark. I'm going to give a few seconds and then we will continue to wrap up. Okay. On Sunday, we have Yasuhiko Kimura, who's going to be back. I'm very excited about his topic. He's going to be talking about the psychology and cosmology of the Übermensch. The Übermensch, as he's talking about, is not Nietzsche's concept of Übermensch. What he means, what Yasuhiko means, is man at his best, human beings at their best. What is their psychology like? And what is their cosmology or their philosophy, their worldview like? That's what he's going to be talking about. It's an incredible topic. 11 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday. So don't miss it. This meetup is closed, but I'm happy to take any comments about anything on 52 Living Ideas at this point. So if anybody wants to say anything, you can go ahead and type an exclamation mark. So anybody, Brian, do you have anything to say about anything? Brian, Chang, I don't know whether I've muted people. Oh yeah, I have muted people. I'm so sorry. Brian, go ahead.
This is Penny, actually.
Go ahead.
It seems like it's kind of the culmination of what they've been talking about, but it's just so mind-boggling that, because what they've been saying all along is basically that, you know, we're the Brahma is all around us basically, but we don't see it. And so at the very end, it's kind of saying, if you know, you can control your senses and get rid of your ego and concentrate on basically on the Brahman, you know, worshiping the Brahman, then you just kind of become one with the Brahman, which in essence you kind of are already, but you don't see it. It's just now here Brian's coming too. It just seems to me like, wow. It just sounds like it seemed always difficult, but now it even seems more difficult.
It is, I mean, that's a great point, Penny. I mean, I was reading Ephesians, I don't know how to pronounce it, Paul's description. And I would recommend reading that. You know, you'll read Gospel of John, where, you know, you hear what Jesus says, what the word is. And then the Paul's commentary, I particularly like Paul, his commentary about how do you actually apply it to your life and how does it work? And there is a lot of commonality between the two of this. Is now we're talking about the how of how do you actually make this happen. Their methods are different, but they are trying to get to the same thing. Because what you're trying to do in what Paul is talking about in Ephesians, he is saying that when you accept the word, right, it allows you. So what, I mean, the concept there is that there is the word, which is inspiring the Holy Spirit in you to move towards God. It translates here is that the Holy Spirit in you is your Atma. And the God is Brahma. And the whole of Gita, you can think of it as a word, or you can think of Om as a word. It doesn't matter whether all of Gita or Om, because Om is the primordial sound which produces all knowledge, which is the same as the word in the Bible. It is all of knowledge. So knowledge, and what is it knowledge of? It is knowledge of the ultimate. It is knowledge of God, knowledge of existence, knowledge of your own self. That's what Gita is, all of Gita, or Om, in short. Jesus, in short, the entire of gospel or the Bible as a whole. The sole purpose of that, of this work, whether it is Gita or the Bible, is to enable your Atma or the Holy Spirit in you to connect to and be one with Brahma or God, where the word is the way, is the door. The Om is the way, it's the door. And you do that on a continual basis. When you do that, that is the state that both Paul and Krishna here are talking about. It's the same thing. expressed in different way. What do you think, Penny?
You said your name.
Oh.
Penny or
Oh,
Brian?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I think, well, I mean, I think that was interesting the way you just connected the two.
What struck me is it was just like we've been talking about with with Barfield and the trumpet and the beauty of the words, the ability to transform. I mean, with the Gita, there are things to do. There is the way, there's the path, and it's not just listening to these words, but I think the words themselves have an ability to bring you possibly to give the right focus, and in that way to make it seem possible, and thereby bring you closer to this ultimate.
Absolutely. And in both, all three, the silver trumpet, Bhagavad Gita, and the Bible, what the word does is that it reminds you, it gives you this momentary change of consciousness, of seeing that, look, it gives you a glimpse of the eternal. But then you have to ask for it. You have to hold on to it from within you for it to remain with you. Just like silver trumpet, most people after hearing it feel actually ashamed of what they felt, and they go about their business. Or they say, oh, who is sounding this trumpet? Stop them from sounding it. Let's lock it away. So there is, it's an issue of grace and asking. The grace will rain down on you, but then you have to ask for you to have it. Myron.
Yeah, I know it's really late, but just hearing you talk about grace and how to get it, I was, first of all, very strongly reminded of a Christian scholar in 19th century Germany called Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I'll type his name in the chat. Yeah. And he was very much against the idea of cheap grace, which he thought the German evangelical church had degraded into. And for some historical context, Bonhoeffer was writing in the time of Hitler's ascension. So he very much was, of course, against that. It would cost him his life too. But more importantly, he thought that, well, so there was a very obvious political complacency too. Of course, many German priests surrendered to the Nazi regime. But on the spiritual side, he felt that the German evangelical church had essentially surrendered the costly grace bought by the sacrifice of Jesus. And he thought that, this costly grace was actually forgotten slowly over time, ever since Christianity got big in Europe, because everyone was, I'm very simplifying it, but his idea was when everyone became Christian and not everyone could afford the monastic life, the idea that our salvation had already been accomplished by someone else got really rooted in people's minds. So cheap grace began to overtake the real meaningful costly grace that has to be worked on, that has to be bought. And I really want to read this long paragraph from
Please.
this. Yeah.
And don't worry about it being late.
Yeah.
I certainly would love to hear what you and anybody else have to say, because this is actually bringing so much together. And this is the kind of conversation that is going to, make this useful to all of us. So please take your time. Go ahead.
Thank you. So first of all, it definitely reminds me of the negative consequences that happens when, for instance, you only blow the silver trumpet when you feel like it suits you, when it's convenient to you, as opposed to blowing it respectfully, I guess. So I'm going to start off with one paragraph. It doesn't necessarily capture his precise ideas about what was going on in Nazi Germany, but it certainly contains his most poignant ideas. This cheap grace has been no less disastrous to our own spiritual lives. Instead of opening up the way to Christ, it has closed it. Instead of calling us to follow Christ, it has hardened us in our disobedience. Perhaps we had once heard the gracious call to follow him, and had at this command even taken the first few steps along the path of discipleship in the discipline of obedience, only to find ourselves confronted by the word of cheap grace. Was that not merciless and hard? The only effect that such a word could have on us was to bar our way to progress and seduce us to the mediocre level of the world, quenching the joy of discipleship by telling us that we were following a way of our own choosing. And just for clarification, the short explanation of this text basically hints that his idea of our own choosing is actually National Socialism. But I have no qualifications to talk about that really, so I'm just going to continue reading. So to the mediocre level of the world, a way of our own choosing, that we were spending our strength and disciplining ourselves in vain, all of which was not merely useless, but extremely dangerous. After all, we were told, our salvation had already been accomplished by the grace of God. The smoking flax was mercilessly extinguished. It was unkind to speak to men like this, for such a cheap offer could only leave them bewildered and tempt them from the way to which they had been called by Christ. Having laid hold on cheap grace, they were barred forever from the knowledge of costly grace. Deceived and weakened, men felt that they were strong now that they were in possession of this cheap grace, whereas they had in fact lost the power to live the life of discipleship and obedience. The word of cheap grace has been the ruin of more Christians than any commandment of works. Unquote.
Wonderful. Thank you, Myron. So I'll say a few things here. If you look at the distinction he's making between cheap grace and costly grace, it is the distinction between passively taking in versus you actively doing something. What happens is that you have what great words give you is that they show you a way. It is a door, but you have to walk through it. You have to walk through it. And that is the costly part. You have to walk through it. If you don't walk through it, you get nothing. It is a door. It is a door. It is a sound. The sound will have emotional impact on you for a moment. But that impact is your passive reaction to grace, to grandeur. It's just passive. It won't last. You have to say yes. You have to ask. You have to do the work. You have to have Holy Spirit. If you do not have the Holy Spirit, which is you loving God, you loving the right thing, you pursuing the truth, you do not get anything. And that is costly because it is effort intensive. You have to take the effort. You have to will. So it's a beautiful way of putting it, the cheap versus costly. And it is passive versus active. And all ideas, religions, all religions and all ideas, bad people convert it into rituals. And they say, you just do this passively and you get all the benefits. You don't, it's just a lie. It's the forms without the function. And they will deck themselves with all the forms. But it doesn't have any meaning. Actually, the forms were produced by that function. But you need to get that function within you. And that is costly, that is effort intensive, that is willed, that has to come from your heart, from your devotion, from your determination. You have to be willing to put up with, you have to be willing to give up things in order to make that happen. That is the example of Jesus. That is the example that we're talking about, of saying that you give up things which are not going towards God in order to go towards God. So just excellent example. Thank you, Myron. Next up is going to be Joe.
Yeah, it's interesting that you use this, and grace is something that needs to be accepted. And I thought about something that was written in the Gospel of John, and it was really interesting that you used the metaphor of a door, where he says, I am the door. If anyone who enters by me will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. Then he goes into people that don't go into the door, essentially. But what this thing is that grace is something that you have to seek and accept. I mean, you have to accept it, and then you have to act on it. So this is part of what we've been talking about, this idea of self-knowledge, and then learning how to act in the world as well. So I thought that you can see some relationships there.
Excellent point. I mean, you need all three things. You need to hear,
right?
You need to love, and you need to walk. Unless you have all three, you don't have anything. So that's great. Next up is Marco. Marco, go ahead.
I really like the point of that there's no good or bad karma. So like every action or every thought or every emotion like isn't bad or good. It's like, you keep on working at them until you sort of like iron out the mistakes. And I thought that concept was really amazing. It was a great concept.
Absolutely, great point. I mean, that is again it's a core part of Bhagavad Gita. You can see how realistic Bhagavad Gita is in accepting everything, of saying, this is what happens, this is the human condition. And you have to accept the reality of the human condition, that we have all these gunas in us, and they have their functions. You need to eat, you need to sleep. Sleep is tamas. Eating itself, the action of eating, being hungry and pursuing food, that is rajas. And those are natural parts of us. And we also can pursue the eternal, which is the sattvic. And the other part of it is that he was, in these verses, he talks about svabhava and saying, you act according to your core nature. And in the process, you can make mistakes, but it is important to just remain focused of it. If you make mistakes, you'll go away from the center, but you always have the ability to change your course and come back. So it is a profoundly liberating doctrine. And the same idea, identical idea, is there in the New Testament. That is the same idea of saying you have the ability of acknowledging your sins, repenting for them, and start to pursue the right path. So it's profound. Thank you. Anybody else wants to say anything? And this is just an amazing conversation. So would love to hear if anybody else has anything else to say. Brian and Penny, would you like to add anything?
Are we on mute or unmute?
You are unmuted.
Well, the one thing I was thinking is I'm glad that this is being captured in the recording and will be shared on the YouTube, because I think this is such an important message, such an important insight. I just am glad that it's being preserved and made available to everyone. Hopefully, many, many people will pick up on this.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think, for me, this has been amazing. I'm not, I have not been focused on religion. So this is relatively new to me. And I see wisdom in this, which is profound. And all of these are you can think of them in completely secular way. You're trying to understand nature, and you're trying to understand your own nature, and you're trying to be true to nature and your own nature. And you are not, you are not distracted by temporary things. You are focused on the eternal principles. So it is a profound integration. And what has happened is that in the modern times, all these ideas of knowledge, for example, we always think of knowledge as knowledge of tables and of concrete things. Whereas the idea of knowledge here is a profoundly integrative idea. That is knowledge of the whole, knowledge of principles that govern all of existence, including us and our consciousness. So and I'm tremendously grateful to everybody here for actively participating. And of course, Yogeshwar has done such an incredible job. And I'm so grateful to him for doing that. I think he just took our Gita meetups to a completely new level, at least, order of magnitude higher and deeper than we have. And the richness here, my feeling is that I am just looking at the surface here. There is just so much depth here. Each of the words, like for example, there was the word nishta. Okay, nishta. The thing is that I grew up learning Sanskrit, so I know enough of it so that whenever I see a word, tha is to hold on to it. So nishta means this determined holding on, a complete confidence, complete faith, complete, it's combination of determination and confidence, which is unswerving and constant. And that actually captures what the heart of Indian philosophy is. You have focus on Brahma, focused on your Atma, like that. So just so much here. So thank you very much, everybody. Really, really appreciate it. See you folks soon. Good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Good night, Srikant.
Bye.